This network is funded by European Erasmus programs. And another significant publication are the chapter in Open Access Book in ICCS, Moral Perspective on Citizenship Education, on IAA's International Civic Citizenship Education. And he read a lot of publication. And before the presentation begins, let me inform how the presentation will be going. First, Professor Wiel will be provided the present, the material. After that, there will be a question, discuss, answer session, and followed by conclusion. Now, allow me to welcome the speaker, Professor of Education at the University of Humanistic Studies in Utrecht, the Netherlands, Professor Wiel. Big applause for him. Thank you, dear Prof. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here at the University in Yogyakarta. Thanks, Dr. Samsuri, for inviting me, and also thanks, Ms. Mila, for introducing me all the way to them today. And it's nice to see that so many students are here already on this early hour. Still see some students coming in. That's good. So I'm from the Netherlands, and you all know, I think, where the Netherlands is the map. In Europe, besides Germany, and the Netherlands have been in Indonesia for several centuries in the colonial period. And so we have a kind of common, partly common history. And I think it's very good if Indonesia and the Netherlands work together on an equal base. So I'm very happy that I sometimes can come here to the University Negeri in Yogyakarta to speak with students, to lecture, and to work together with teachers like Dr. Samsuri, Dr. Sohano, and others are leading. So I really like to work together with them. And so I will speak today about developments in moral and citizenship education. And I will use examples from several studies I did in the Netherlands, but also I did a few studies for the European Parliament, European Union. So I'll also speak about that. And let me ask first, what do you know about the Netherlands? When you hear about the Netherlands, what are you thinking about? What? Leiden?
Leiden University.
Yeah, yeah.
Ini kalau misalnya mau jawab nanti ya.
Other people, what you know about the Netherlands? What you like about the Netherlands? What you don't like about the Netherlands?
Football team?
Ada yang tahu tentang Belanda? Ayo. Kalau ini boleh bisa bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris?
We all know what the Netherlands is. The national team with the quarterfinal World Cup. We love Pandai.
Pandai, yeah.
Pandai, Fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah, yeah.
The player in your national team, and if we are in Indonesia, we will support your national team.
Okay, good to hear.
Then, we in Indonesia we say that is answer with ini in Indonesia say the Vicky pass. Incer angin.
Pen, big pen for your country. Pen is like always sorry.
Windmill.
Yes.
Yeah.
And many people say that country is under the sea.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that's all I know about Netherlands.
but good to hear about football, soccer. I really also really like soccer. I'm a fan of Ajax. And
Rood kulit.
I used to play football myself, but I was better at theory than in practice. What you were saying about windmills is interesting. Windmills in the 17th, 18th centuries, they were used to take the water out of the land. So to protect the Netherlands against the sea. Nowadays, we are building windmills again, but that's for getting wind energy. But because of the climate, because to take a greener climate. So we are building a lot of new windmills, but more modern. But windmills is very characteristic of the Dutch landscape. And they also were saying that Netherlands is part of the Netherlands is below the sea level. So our house, I'm living near Amsterdam, and between Amsterdam and Utrecht, and our house is exactly on zero. So about half of the country is below the sea level. So for the Netherlands, it's real urgent to protect against climate change, because when the sea level will come higher, and you really can get into trouble, like here, like in Jakarta here. So yes, we are living below the sea level. And so the Netherlands, as I said, we have been here. And I think here in Indonesia, and I think we did some good things, but we also did some bad things. In particular, just after the Second World War. And the Netherlands still tries to learn from what has happened there, and also to make excuses about that. So I think that's very important. And there's also a more personal reason that I like Indonesia. My wife, she was born in Surabaya. And mixed Indonesian, mixed European family. And but when she was 5, her family moved to the Netherlands because they were working for the Dutch government here. So after independence, it was difficult for them to stay. So they went back to the Netherlands. But the whole family still really likes Indonesia. And often my wife and I, we are coming together to Indonesia, and we really like it. We have visited different parts, like Batam and Sulawesi, Bali, Malang,
Kudus.
yeah. And the family of her father comes from Malang.
Malang, yes.
From mother comes from Surabaya.
Surabaya.
So we went to several places there, and also visited some families still living here. So there's a more personal reason to be involved in Indonesia, but also I say Indonesia and the Netherlands have a common history. So it's very good if we stay in good contact and help each other. So as I said, I'm very glad to have the opportunity to talk today with you. And so I will start speaking a lot, but if you have some questions, please raise your hand. It's nice to have more dialogue and not only I'm speaking. Okay, the picture you see there is from Utrecht. The building left is my university. So it's a building from the 18th century. In front there's a little canal. Maybe some of you know we have a lot of canals also around them. With a lot of canals in cities. So my name is Wiel, like William in English, and Veugelers. Both names are really dialect names from the south of the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is not that big, but it has the cultural differences between the different parts of the Netherlands. So the northern part is more Protestant, and the southern part is more Catholic, and the western part is more non-religious. I grew up in the southern part, in the Catholic family, and now I'm living in the western part near Amsterdam. And the University of Humanistic Study is linked with the humanist movement in the Netherlands. And humanism means it's a worldview, and a worldview that believes in the human potential and stimulate human flourish inside the world. Thank you. So our university is inspired by the humanist vision on human development, and then, but we are very open to work together with people from different worldviews, different religions. But our university is inspired by the humanist movement. First, I want to speak a little bit about Dutch schools, Dutch education. We'll know a little bit about the background. Like in many countries, we have primary, secondary, and higher education. Students, when they are 4, they go to primary education till they are 12. Secondary education is either 5 or 6 years old long. And then you can go to higher education or to vocational education. And already in secondary education, you have vocational strands and you have general education. About 50% of students in the Netherlands, they are going to universities or universities for professional studies. Dutch education in international comparison does quite well, but it's going a little bit down, for example, for reading, mathematics, and science. But in general, the Netherlands does quite well in the educational international test. What's interesting about Dutch education, that we have many private schools, so not private like in most countries, but private schools that are funded by the government and that have to follow the national curriculum, except for the topic, for the subject of religious studies. So 2/3 of the Dutch schools, they are religious schools. Either about 1/3 of the Dutch schools are Protestant schools, 1/3 Catholic schools. A few Islamic schools, particularly in Bible education, and some Jewish schools, and also some Montessori schools, normal pedagogical schools, Montessori or Spanish schools. So 2/3 of the schools are this kind of private, fully funded by the government, and they have to follow the national curriculum, except that for the topic of religious studies. Also, parents and students are free to make the choice for school. So you don't need to go to the school in your neighborhood, but you can go to the school you want. Or the school, sometimes the school who accept you. I come back to that later on. We have a strong selection system. At 12 years old, you have to choose correctly for either going to general education or vocational education. And in both friends, they have three different levels. So already at a young age, people have to make a choice for a certain plan of education. And it's not only a choice, it's based on a national test. You have good test marks, then you can go to higher schools, higher types of schools. So that strong selection makes Dutch education very competitive. And that's a little bit strange because many people have more child-centered ideas about education. Also, teachers have that a lot. But at the same time, they have to test a lot. And there are many assessments of students. And that gives a lot of stress to students. And there's particularly an issue at the moment that particularly secondary education, there's too much stress on students to get good marks. So there's a difficult combination of one way being very child-centered oriented and being very friendly in the classroom and so on, and the other side really focusing on the good tests, good results. So that patient is really visible in those schools. So there's much pressure on students, I say. And that has increased during COVID. I'll come back to that later when I speak of COVID. So teachers' workload is high at schools. They teach quite a lot of classes. There are big classes of about 30 students. And I know that the classes here in Indonesia are much bigger. There are about 40. But for the Dutch teachers find it very large schools. So the Turkish workload is high. And in the Netherlands, like in many European countries, there's a shortage of teachers. In particular for mathematics, science, also some languages, and not so much for social studies. There's quite a lot of shortage of people, also in primary schools. And the reason is that the workload of teaching is so high. Opposed to the many hours that you have to make. And also teaching, probably you know about it, I'm a student or doing your in-service period in schools. Teaching is hard work. So you have many classes a day. You have big groups. You have to interplay with all the students. You have to control them. You have to look how the progress are making. So teaching is a very complex task. Interesting, but not easy. So there's a reason that some people don't want to go into teaching or they drop out of the teaching profession because the workload is so hard. And policy and also Dutch society is really concerned about that issue. But it's not that easy to solve the problem. The wages of teachers have been growing in the past few years to make it more attractive for people to join the teaching. So just say the teacher workload is very important. Then, as I said, Dutch pedagogical ideas are often, particularly by teachers, very much child-centered. You know what I mean by the word child-centered? So like Montessori, like Dalton, it's that kind of idea that individual interest, individual learning with students is very important. And one funny result of international research is that in quite good study on how students are thinking about their school, international study, the Dutch students were the most positive about the school from all the participating countries. But when we analyze the data very well, students were in particular positive about meeting their friends in schools and having breaks. They were not that enthusiastic about the teaching. So that's an example of that little bit linked to the child-centered idea. So that you must be happy in school, and that learning is not the most important. And as I said before, Dutch schools have the challenge to balance the child-centered approach and more the focusing on the results, on assessment. The last point I want to stress about education in the Netherlands is that it's not that easy to implement citizenship education in the Netherlands because of the point of private schools. Private schools, they are often saying the government may not speak about this part of citizenship education because that's related to religion. And then the religious schools may make their own curriculum. They may set their own goals. So it's difficult for the Dutch government to make a policy on citizenship education. I'll come back to that later on. Any questions about what I was saying about Dutch education?
Ada yang mau menanggapi, Prof tadi bilang menjelaskan sedikit tentang gimana sih pendidikan di Belanda. Ada yang menanggapi dari beberapa 2, 3, 4, 8 poin ini. Kalau mau membandingkan dengan pendidikan di Indonesia juga boleh. Any comment or question? Okay, friends.
Thank you.
Sebut nama Mas ya.
You have to introduce yourself.
My name is Prince Yamani. I'm from class A. Was very good education. Yeah, I think I really didn't work and sorted. In our country, in our nation, the teachers it's based on hours. Many teachers they have 24 hours, 36 hours in 1 week. In a week. So I want to ask user
Bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa.
in your country, it's same based on hours or
Yes, about the same, yeah, about 24 hours
Per hour.
teaching a week. Yeah, it's about the same. And well, first of all, a few years ago it was 28, but it brought it down to 24 because of the big workload of the teachers. 24 hours teaching, but then you have time for preparation, time for meetings with other teachers, time for assessing the work of the students. So besides teaching, you have many tasks as teacher. But the workload is about the same. Thank you for the question.
Oke, yang lainnya.
And Wiel, anyone say that question? Okay.
Mike.
Let's ikuti dari yang
Berdiri, stand up. Ya.
mungkin pakai bahasa Indonesia.
Ya, boleh.
Untuk PPKM di Indonesia sendiri kan itu ada satu kali terkait dengan sejarah bagaimana itu meningkatkan yang terkait dengan nationality dan nasionalisme kita. In our country, citizenship education, talking about history, and my question is how citizenship education can relate mengajarkan pada mereka kayak teach to student about history of Netherlands. Thank you.
Yeah, understood. So how it teaches us citizenship education, teaches about the history. And I'll speak a lot about it in my presentation, but I can say already a few things. And with history, there is always a debate about what perspective of history we should have. And for example, in 15 years ago, we got what they call a canon, that's history. And it was about important periods of the Dutch history. But that canon was criticized because it was too nationalistic. And it wasn't speaking so much about, let's say, the more worst part of the Dutch history. For example, the period of in Indonesia after the independence, when there was a kind of war here between Indonesia and the Netherlands. So now later on they make some changes in that. So also showing more perspective of this case from Indonesia. Because it's interesting to know, Indonesia is saying that they became independent in 1945. In the Netherlands, we teach students that Indonesia became independent from 1949. So it's important to speak with students about those differences. So as future teachers of citizenship education knows, history is only a reconstruction of what happened. And people can make different reconstructions. And it's very good to speak about those differences. Thank you for your question. Okay, let me go on, and I want to speak about different levels of the curriculum. I really like this scheme. It's from American education and is young group at University of Washington, and it's very helpful, say, to speak about education and also to do research on education. The ideal level of the curriculum, that are the nice ideas of a government, but also it can be the nice ideas of a principal, even the nice ideas of a teacher himself. So the ideal curriculum is taken on the policy level. The nice ideas. The second level is the formal level. That are the formal regulations, the textbooks, the assessment, formal goals. As part of the policy, and there can be a difference between the ideals and the policy. And for example, in policy, people can say citizenship education is very high level, but the politicians can say citizenship education is very important. But when you look on the formal level, often in many countries, it's not that important. Not comparing to mathematics and languages. I say in Indonesia, citizenship education is quite a strong position. So I think that's very good. So there can be a difference between the ideal and the formal. So therefore it's also good to look at the different levels. Then when we go to the schools, in the classroom, teachers always make an own interpretation curriculum. They say, oh, this is very important. I want to emphasize that. And they give examples, own examples. So So it's not that they are bad teachers, that they don't follow the curriculum, but it's a natural process that teachers are making interpretation of the curriculum. So you can do research on how teachers are making interpretation of the curriculum. That's what we have called interpreted curriculum. You can have interviews with teachers. And we did a lot of surveys, but also interviews with teachers about citizenship education and moral education. So that's the interpretation level of the curriculum. Then teachers have to practice in the classroom. That's operationalized. That can be different from the interpretation. For example, what we often found is that teachers are saying, I really like to have a dialogues in my classroom. And then we go to do observations in the classroom, and we hardly don't see any dialogues. And only the teacher is speaking. That's not, it's not to say that these are bad teachers, but there can be a difference between what people say as what they think is important, and they really can believe it, but it's not always easy to practice that. So therefore it's important from an analytical point of view to make a distinction between interpretive curriculum and operationalized curriculum. So I had several PhD projects in which the researchers used this scheme, the particular difference between the interpretive level and the operational level. Then we come to students. Students experience the curriculum. Like you now sitting here, I tell a lot, but what comes in your mind can be different from what I'm saying. So the experience can be different from my different from what I'm doing. It's important, the same way in analytical, important to make that distinction. Also, what you learn of it can be different from the experience. So therefore, John Goodman made the distinction between experience curriculum and the effective curriculum. In the effective curriculum, you can use tests, and experience curriculum. You can ask students, what have you heard? What is your impression? So I think these levels of curriculum are very helpful in speaking and thinking about education, about the work of teachers. Any questions about this?
Ada yang mau menanggapi tentang level dari penerapan kurikulum di Belanda di negara Eropa? Ada yang mau menanggapi atau memberikan komentar? Kalau di Indonesia tuh gini-gini nggak sampai ke tahap efektif atau cuma sampai experience?
Okay, I hope you can use it in speaking about your teaching and in writing your thesis.
You can also speak in Indonesia, we can translate in English. Ini bisa pakai bahasa Indonesia juga.
Monggo, silakan.
Bisa pakai bahasa Indonesia ya teman-teman ya, nggak apa-apa. Biar kelas ini rame gitu. Anyone can help me or?
Harus ada hadiah mungkin.
Oh iya, dikasih dalam kan? Biar rame.
Okay.
Ada
Ada Pak, ada juga.
mic-nya, Mas.
Saya juga Pak.
Oke.
Zai mau bertanya, boleh?
Ayo Zai.
Anak semester 1 kemarin, mahasiswa abang 2022 itu aktif banget ya Pak ya.
Iya.
Nah ini S2 loh ya, yuk lebih semangat loh ya.
Ini Prince lagi.
Prince lagi.
Prince again.
It's another question.
His name is Prince.
Why we have a strong position? Because our ideology Pancasila. Pancasila is always become part of our life. Even right now, civic education in school haven't changed nomenclature. It's removed. Then it's Pancasila education. That's very interesting for us right now because there is a change nomenclature. But I think from like of curriculum it's same. But maybe that's the problem in our country is so many teachers when learning in class they always teacher center. In my experience, my teacher always talk based on and based on his experience.
Talk and talk.
Always talk. So I wanna ask you, Prof. It's same in your country, or maybe you have an idea how we fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, good point. So, as I said already, many teachers want to do more on dialogues classrooms. But it's not that easy. Because classrooms are big. And often teachers have 15 minutes to teach one class. So the class come in, before everybody is sitting and listening, a few minutes have gone. So before starting the whole process, it takes some time. And so you don't have always enough time for doing cooperative learning, dialogues. And so teachers like to do that more, but it's not that easy. And, but it's very important that it's not only the teacher that is speaking. So therefore, I like if people now ask me sometimes questions. So thank you for the question. So it's good that you have more dialogues than only I'm speaking the whole time. Okay.
Maybe because we are the future teachers, so we for the next 2-3 years, they are teacher from the Gen Z, the millennial. So, so that's the big problem because when we are studying, the teachers use the teacher center, not in the student center. So that's why we put in English. We make it happen in the nowadays that we are a teacher. So what should we do? What should we do about the teaching in the futures with the Gen Z, with the millennial, kind like that? Because yeah, in the case everything is teacher centers.
Yeah.
But nowadays the government changed the curriculum and make it a little bit student centers.
Yeah.
That's the problem in Indonesia.
Yeah. And I think it's not only a problem in Indonesia. I think it's worldwide that education is very much dominated by the teachers.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy to make it more a social process. And often teachers also we see sometimes in the Netherlands that education becomes very individualized. And students are working the whole time for themselves. And teaching is also, learning is also communication. So it's very important that students have the opportunity to work together.
Ya. Jadi di Belanda itu siswa diberikan waktu seperti itu untuk bekerja bersama tim, jadi tidak hanya teacher center, tapi memang teacher center ini bukan pasangan kita aja ya. Ternyata di dunia ini juga memang banyak juga yang menjelaskan siswa yang ada mendengarkan ketika yang menjadi PR kita bersama sebagai guru masa depan, we have to change this system. Yeah.
It's ideals.
Good job for you guys.
Okay, good. I go on with the next slide. That's good, yeah. So the picture you see of the book series with Wiel, and it's called Moral Development and Citizenship Education. You can find it on the internet. Some of the books are open access. Here I want to speak about how values are incorporated in schools. As you know, values are very important in citizenship education. Citizenship education is not only about knowledge and about skills, but also about attitudes. And in particular, attitudes are based on moral values. I'm always saying we can learn a lot of facts about democracy, about how to vote, and what parties and how the government is working, the knowledge about democracy. You can also learn a lot of democratic skills, how to vote, how to discuss, how to present your ideas. But the most important thing is having a democratic attitude, that you are open for different opinions, that you try to make a consensus, that you want to participate in political life. So the attitude is very important. I think that's the most essential part of citizenship education. So here I speak about where we can find moral values in schools as part of citizenship education. It can be in a specific subject as citizenship education. It can be integrated in other subjects like language, like biology, like geography, religious studies, all kinds of subjects. They have moral values of it. And they contribute to citizenship education. The schools are also cross-cultural activities, projects. Moral values are also embedded, and then we come back to the discussion we just had about teacher-centered education, in the methodology of teaching and learning. And hopefully that's dialogical, cooperative, and inquiry. And very important is a democratic culture with active participation of students. If the students are only passive in education, in schools, then they don't learn to become an active citizenship. Like already John Dewey was saying, that school is a place of training for citizenship. So a democratic school culture is very important. And I'm not saying that students should return everything, but you can look how the influence of the students can become bigger. Another part of the whole school approach is that we are working on inclusive education and bringing together different groups of students and teachers. And part of whole school approaches is collaboration with the wider community. So these all together, let's say, have to do with moral education and citizenship education. Citizenship education is not only embedded in the specific subject that you are going to teach, but also in other parts of the school system, in other parts of the school. In the Netherlands now, schools are having, in particular secondary school, are having a coordinator for citizenship education. And often is a teacher of citizenship education who tries to coordinate and bring together the different activities in the school. So I think that's very important. And also, I think it's a very interesting job for people who are teaching in schools. To teach, schools are challenged by government at the moment to develop more coherent and more whole school approach on citizenship education. So I think that's a good development. I will come to different aspects of this during my lecture today. Then a few words about the concept of citizenship. I think you heard already a lot about that. So Dr. Samsuri showed me on Monday how the pre-graduate and graduate students. And I really was impressed by how much international literature you are reading. So it's very good and very interesting. And there are two developments, what I call the broadening of citizenship and the decrease of citizenship. But first, it has in the past few decades, policy, theory, and practice, in particular in policy and in theory. The broadening of the concept of citizenship. Originally, the concept was linked to the national identity, the nation states. But nowadays, people also speak about regional citizenship. For example, in Europe, the European Union citizenship. And I know also people sometimes speak about Southeast Asian citizenship. And citizenship becomes even more important, but we're speaking about global citizenship. That you are a human being, as a human being, a member of humanity, of the whole planet, global world. So the concept of global citizenship is used. But that's the broadening of the concept from the traditional national one to more to global citizenship. But also, you can see the deepening of the citizenship. Originally, particularly the work of Marshall, that was only on the political level, but how the political life is working. But also nowadays, people are using citizenship on the social and the cultural level, on how people should live together, on how different cultures can express themselves. What is the culture of a country? This morning in the Dutch newspapers, there was a lot written about the new law in Indonesia about sexual behavior. And you can say that's a part of citizenship, about how people have to live together. That's what I mean with the cultural level. And it's interesting to see that in many countries at the moment, governments are really working on the cultural level of citizenship, not only in Indonesia, but more countries, also in the Netherlands, about how people should live together. And I'm not saying that's bad, but we should discuss about it and talk about it, what is good kind of citizenship and how we can improve it.
Next slide. Okay.
So you have both the process of the broadening of the concept and the deepening of the concept. But this is strong neoliberal vision on policy. It's surprising that at the same time, the policy is very oriented to the social and the cultural domain, in developing citizenship in that domain. And it's a little bit paradox having a neoliberal vision and a strong cultural policy on citizenship. I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm just saying that this is being developed. And what I find important that there is debate in the countries about it, and also that there is possibility for individual freedom, for human rights. I think that's very important. But it shows that people can have different ideas about citizenship. Any questions or remarks about this?
Okay, we hope. Introduce yourself first.
My name is KULIAH. So interesting, let me ask you in Indonesia, guys. Di balik pendekatan yang tadi diberikan oleh Profesor dari pendekatan dan kewarganegaraan siswa, dari hal tersebut, bagaimana di Belanda kemudian siswa itu memandang gurunya seperti apa, dan menurut apa, kemudian bagaimana langkah-langkah yang harus dilakukan terhadap pandangan siswa terhadap guru. Terima kasih.
Dua pertanyaan. They want to ask two questions. Kita tampung ya, Mas. Oh, we got one question. Zai dulu ya, Kak, baru.
Zai, favorit.
Ya, Zai, boleh bertanya dulu bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia? Oke. They want to answer in Indonesia. That's okay. Stand up and introduce yourself. Terus, pengenalan.
Berdiri aja nggak?
Kelas A. Dan saya mengenai pandemi 19. Menurut saya COVID-19 sebuah momentum yang sangat misterius bagi pendidikan atau banyak hal. Yang menjadi pertanyaan saya pertama, bagaimana tanggapan dari Profesor mengenai ini khusus di Indonesia. Kemudian, apakah setelah terjadinya COVID-19 ini kan kewarganegaraan harusnya peserta didik menjadi sosok individual atau sosial. Kemudian, secara globalnya jika dikaitkan pada aspek-aspek kompetensi yang dimiliki peserta didik secara umum, baik itu di Eropa maupun di negara-negara lain, seperti skill, knowledge, dan disposition, apakah semakin berubah dan perubahan yang mengarah kemana setelah terjadinya COVID-19 ini? Dan terakhir, menurut saya, apa yang harusnya dilakukan membuat ajaran dan moral yang baik semuanya kembali normal lagi? Apakah harus memang adanya perubahan setelah pandemi ini, atau memang sewajarnya seperti ini jalurnya seperti itu? Saya kembali kepada normal. Terima kasih.
Banyak ya.
Many questions.
Satu lagi boleh? Oh ya, di belakang boleh. Tadi ada Mbak yang udah tunjuk tangan sebelah sana yang Mbak Esther, boleh?
Baiklah, terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Prof, saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Ini saya izin bertanya mengenai pendekatan pendidikan kewarganegaraan sekolah tinggi. Pada poin ketiga yaitu ada tentang sekolah yang demokratis dengan siswa yang lebih. Prof, di Indonesia ini banyak sekolah-sekolah itu masih ada di dalam proses di Desember.
Counter
Nah, di
science.
sini untuk pendidikan kewarganegaraan sendiri hanya sekedar mata pelajaran biasa seperti itu. Untuk menunjang siswa yang demokratis aktif ini sangat sulit untuk sekolah-sekolah di Bangkok. Pertanyaan saya, untuk di Belanda apakah ada perbedaan tersebut di sekolah-sekolahnya untuk pendidikan kewarganegaraan? Terima kasih, saya kembali kepada Prof.
Thank you so much. Prof, let me translate the first question from Wiel. He said, based in civic education, based on civic education that you take about whole school approach, many people say in Netherlands and student center. In Netherlands, how student seeing a teacher with student approach, like how student they interface with the teacher in Netherlands. You got it, Prof? Okay. The second question is from Fernando Zai. It's my beloved friend. Okay. Kebetulan dia udah sampaikan bahasa Indonesia jadi bisa saya satu. Pertanyaannya adalah, in COVID-19 is a mysterious pandemic. Many things are unpredictable and change. His question is, what is the response from the speaker now about current education, especially citizen education in Indonesia post-COVID? Because student is they must be individual after COVID. And the third question, banyak ya. And the third question is, with the whole student approach in point 3, a democratic school culture with active participation of students, in Indonesia, many of school, they're maybe not the capital city, they are in the villages, so we have a different, bahasa Inggris yang memperlakukan ya. Perlakuan ada yang bisa bantu saya? Treatment, yeah, treatment. Okay. They have a different treatment, school in capital city and school in villager in Indonesia. How about in Netherlands? They have a different treatment or no? As a moral education and citizen education. Begitu ya Pak ya tadi. Kalau di Belanda itu gimana? Kalau di Indonesia kan di kota seperti itu bedanya. You got it, Prof?
Yeah. Thank you. These are all three are very good questions, very interesting. And the first and the third one we can take together. And the first one is about how students face teachers that have student-centered approach. And the third question was about the city and the role of differences in teaching strategies, teaching climate. And yeah, of course, there are differences between schools. We also have that in the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, even because of all those private schools and the quite strong autonomy of schools in the Netherlands, some schools are very much child-centered, and other schools are much more teacher-centered. They also present that to the parents. If you want to have your child going to a more traditional school, come to us. If you want your child to have a more friendly, student-centered atmosphere, come to us. So there are differences. And when you try to choose a job in the school, you should try to find out if the school fits a little bit with your ideas. So but it's not always that easy to find a good match. But you should be aware of it. Try to find out what kind of school is it. And the difficult thing is for young teachers that start in school is Often they have a lot of students sending ideas. But in the school, but you also need some discipline. You also need to work in the school climate that's dominant. So you really have to be aware of what can I do. And coming in particular back to the first question, so for some students, they really like student-centered approach. And other teachers, other students, they more have the idea, you're the teacher, tell me what I have to do. You have to do your job.
Yeah.
So I have to learn, you have to teach. And so you have to find it out and be very aware of who processes. And try to play with it. So,
Gimana Mas Umum? Teman-teman yang lain sudah garip. Tadi kata Prof ini kalau di Belanda itu bisa student center, kemudian lebih fun karena anak-anak bisa memilih gitu, bisa memilih mata pelajaran apa, bagaimana pembelajaran itu berlangsung kalau di Belanda. Di garip Mas Umum? Di garip.
Pertanyaan di email di WA ada.
Oh,
Pertanyaan.
the second question about COVID, I come back
Ada
to that
pertanyaan.
later on.
Ada.
I have a few slides about it. It's a good point.
The second question is about after COVID, students more the individual than before. So what about this? The civic skill, he asked about civic skill. Is it impact for civic skill or no after COVID-19?
Yeah. So the learning process was more individual, but also during COVID it became clear how important the social life is for students inside and outside school. So
Ya kalau setelah COVID memang mempengaruhi ya dari dari pembelajaran siswa di luar atau di dalam kelas karena COVID kan kebanyakan siswa di luar kelasnya tidak di dalam satu ruangan. Jadi ini membuat skill mereka bertambah seperti itu. They gonna improve their social skill maybe, Prof?
yeah, it was surprising to see
Zoom audience.
during COVID that many students were missing school. And that they were happy that they could go back to school.
Karena waktu COVID banyak siswa yang kangen sama sekolah, terus mereka sekolah lagi sekarang, jadi mereka akan semakin semangat belajar karena kemarin 2 tahun mereka online dan language. So that's what it is.
So
Desember Desember.
Iya benar ya, sama itu juga ya.
but you also like to meet
Together.
your friends. So
Kalian seneng kan ketemu teman-temannya kalau di rumah Zoom? Seneng nggak? Nah, ini the online school because they want to meet their friends. Yeah, it's same in Netherlands sama juga di Belanda juga. Memang COVID ini ya. Terus the third question from
Audience
from audience in
Zoom.
Zoom meeting, Prof. Hello, my name is Aminu Rahma. I would like to ask something about Indonesia. Indonesia has a lot of local customs, culture, and history. What do you think that improving best citizenship education so is true? Where are our cultures, custom, and local history can be different, and Indonesia also recognize different religions. And the second is how do we increase citizenship knowledge in a community environment after than school? Because currently citizenship education in Indonesian society still have no impact. Got it. This is a lot of questions, Prof.
you have all good questions, so that's good. I like it. And yeah, cultural influence are very important, and of course there are differences, and we should respect appreciate differences, but also we should be aware of commonalities. Many commonalities between people, between different cultures. And even in the small country of the Netherlands, we have different cultures.
Same as Indonesia.
So, for example, I'm come originally from the south, out part.
Hmm.
They are more relaxed,
Cheers.
and they like to party.
Yeah.
They have carnival, and they like to eat good. And the northern part is more traditional Christian, so they're working hard. They are more relaxed. From what say, more modest.
Kalau jangankan di Indonesia yang banyak itu ya, dari negara Belanda aja, itu juga punya culture sih. Kalau di India Selatan kayak tadi, India Selatan itu sesuainya lebih relax, suka party itu dalam artian suka bukan apa ya, lebih chill, lebih asik gitu loh. Nah, kalau di bagian Netherlands yang lain, dia lebih ke karena dia Kristen, terus dia dari lebih tradisional. Jadi tidak se energik yang selatan seperti itu. TV Belanda seperti itu. Indonesia juga kayak gitu kan. Kalau ngajar di orang Jawa, suaranya memang lebih rendah. Kalau intonasinya lebih tinggi.
Bias.
We have the different dialect in Indonesia. Jadi seperti itu. Jadi kalau di Sumatera lebih fokus, kalau di Jawa lebih santai. Sama juga di Belanda juga kayak gitu. Have same thing. Okay.
So even the school choice in many cities, they have both Catholic and Protestant schools.
Hmm.
And often parents choose what Protestant school, not only because of religion, but also because they are more strictly organized,
Okay.
and more disciplined.
Yeah.
And the Catholic schools, they are a little bit more easygoing,
I see. Fun.
more cultural. So some parents like that.
Kalau di Belanda, let me translate in Indonesia. Kalau di Belanda, orang bisa memilih anaknya mau diajarkan di sekolah Katolik atau di sekolah Protestan. Bukan berdasarkan agama mereka juga, tapi kalau Katolik itu lebih chill, easy going gitu-gitu. Tapi kalau yang Protestan itu dia tersistem seperti itu sangat aku sendiri. Keluarga lebih memilih penyekolah anaknya di sekolah Protestan karena lebih tersusun. Jadi kalau dikhawatirkan kalau di Katolik anaknya jadi lebih seperti ya. Jadi mereka lebih suka menyekolahkan anaknya di tempat Protestan. Sekarang ada tanggapan Mas karena seperti itu?
Yeah. So Mike.
Yeah.
Udah nggak mau silakan.
This serves another standard of.
No.
I think Netherlands and Indonesia have accepted because Indonesia has a legacy from Netherlands, and like this, and
One could
Bangkrut.
is more legacy. Okay, but I want to ask to Prof. Because in Indonesia, all the government may be focused in religion education. But how if I'm not wrong, you said that in northern Netherlands is Protestant, South Netherlands is Catholic, but in Western is non-religious. how about that? And we know that the root has not healthy like that, because I think it's citizenship education in Europe or American was about immigrant. About immigrant. Yeah, immigrant. And maybe it's challenging for you and Africans more than cultures like Indonesia. But the first question is how the teacher are influencing the student about student values. I think if more immigrants, more values comes to Europe, and about generation too, how to do values in many millennial generations. Thank you.
Thank you for your, back up two questions. So you are very, very central to the topic of citizenship education. And so many of the slides refer to it, but I will answer already about it now. And I say everybody, teacher or not a teacher, has a personal view about what is good life. And that can be based on religion. And also it can be own idea, own construct, which you use elements of religion. So everybody has all, everybody. If you have religion or not. Even if you have no religion, you have a moral view. You have ideas about what is good and what is bad. And so I think it's very important to think about what is the moral view of someone. What's the moral view of the teacher? And how the teacher can work with it. Come back to that later on. But my idea is that everybody has a moral view. Also each teacher. Religious or not. And regarding the immigrants, in Europe, also the Netherlands, we have quite a lot of immigrants, but when you compare that to other parts of the world, it's not that much. And with immigrants, also the cultural diversity becomes bigger. But if many Western people are coming to Asia for this, we also have more diversity. It's the same if many people from different parts of the world come to Europe, more diversity. So contemporary growth, in the globalization, there is a growing diversity. And in the Netherlands, we have many debates about how we should approach people who want to migrate to the Netherlands and to Europe in general. And so the idea is we cannot accept everybody because society cannot accept so many people at the same time because how it is like that. But also we have a moral obligation to help people who are in trouble, who really need some safe place to live. For example, people from Syria, and now people from the Ukraine. We have about 50,000 people from the Ukraine at the moment. And I think it's very important that Dutch society care about that. But I think it's also important to emphasize that citizenship is not only about migration. Sometimes in the Dutch debate, people are focusing too much on immigration, I think we are speaking about citizenship. And then we ask migrants that they accept everything of the Netherlands, that they integrate. Assimilation is called. And of course, we should within certain limits set by cultural diversity. So there is also the discussion about what should society set of ideas. That's the same for people from traditional Dutch position as people from more traditional migrant ideas. So that's really about citizenship. But citizenship is more than only speaking about my life. Citizenship is about how we all together. And the migrant issue is only part of it. Thank you.
Saya terjemahkan sedikit. Let me translate. Yang dikatakan Prof tadi, walaupun di Netherlands, di Belanda itu kita bisa memilih ya siswa sekolah di Katolik atau di Protestan, tapi di sana setiap orang itu, setiap anak itu mempunyai nilai. Jadi semua agama itu mengajarkan nilai atau value dalam apa disebut sebagai moral and citizenship. Kemudian di Belanda itu banyak sekali permasalahan seperti migran, kemudian keberagaman sama seperti di Indonesia. Kayak kita menerima turis asing, berarti kita menerima orang asing untuk datang dan memberikan pemahamannya kepada kita seperti itu. Nah, kalau ini bukan tentang berbeda-beda, bukan tentang berbeda-beda kayak aku orang asing datang ke Netherlands, kayak aku nih, misalnya saya datang ke Netherlands kemudian saya langsung menyebarkan pemikiran tidak. Jadi orang Netherlands tetap punya filter seperti itu, mereka tetap terbuka seperti itu terhadap pemahaman-pemahaman baru. Kemudian kata Prof tadi, bukan tentang keluarga negaranya saja, tapi bagaimana kita bersama-sama membangun karakter, building characters, together building characters, and that's the point. Walaupun kita banyak imigran, tapi seperti yang dikatakan Prof, di Belanda itu banyak imigran dari Iran, terus dari Suriah, terus dari mana itu? Sekarang yang sama Rusia itu apa?
Ukraina.
Ukraina ya Pak, dari Ukraina. Jadi dia banyak sekali menghubungi imigran, tapi nilai moral yang Belanda sangat punya. Dia tidak menutup untuk informasi-informasi baru, nilai-nilai baru itu masuk di Belanda. Oke, dari
Break dulu 15 menit nanti bisa nanya.
Kita ada break 15 menit ya teman-teman. Saya harapkan teman-teman untuk on time karena
ya. Ini kuliah ya, bukan seminar. Jadi ada break dulu baru masuk lagi.
Break, jadi masuk boleh kalau mau ke kamar boleh ke belakang, tapi nanti mau masuk lagi boleh masuk ke sini. Baiklah, we want to close the lecture. So for all of you, thank you so much for your participation. I hope that we can invite you again.
Iya, break dulu, nanti masuk lagi jam 10 kurang seperempat.
Jam 10 ya.
Oke. Dan before.
Kalau mau di sini juga ya, Pak, tapi ya.
Yeah, despite slide and many questions. No. Because your explaining is very interesting about how comparing.
Yes.
And citizenship is very important.
Is
This,
Thank you. Many thanks. Head of offering, but yeah.
Oh, that signature and what is Indonesia. Yeah.
Kalau aksen ya, kalau itu saya demo kok tidak akan kalau
Better. Welcome, Mr. Welcome, Manil. Okay. So, set pocket. Okay. Okay. Listen. Oh yes.
Okay. I will go on. With this one.
The next slide. Okay.
Till now, I really like it. It's good that you have so many
Makan
questions.
Makan dulu.
But then only had 5 slides, and I still have 25 slides. So we have to go on till 6 o'clock. Some slides are a little bit fast, and many of the things I'm speaking of is in this book, and this book is open access. Later on, I'll show it later. So learning values. Learning values is always a personal process of giving meaning. It's a personal process. Therefore, everybody develops his own values. Of course, you use information from books, from religions, from friends, but you make your own personal meaning system, your own worldview. That's very important to realize. But this is not only an individual process, it's a social process, because you interact with other people. It's biological. Maybe you heard about social constructivism. And the learning psychology is quite dominant at the moment. And that people develop their own meaning, and also you do that in a biological way. It uses the word of Piaget, Vygotsky, Brunner, that kind of thinkers. And I speak about 3 learning processes: reflective learning, biological learning, and democratic learning. Reflective learning is articulating your own values and feelings in reasoning and practices. It's acquiring your own learning process and identity. And it is critical thinking. But critical thinking, according to me, is not only a logical equation. In critical thinking, also moral values are important. By speaking about what is good, moral values are embedded. So reflective learning is necessary to regulate behavior and taking responsibility. I think reflective learning is very important for your professional development, but also to help students to become reflective learners. So the second kind of learning I distinguish is biological learning. And that means communicate in an open way with other people. An open way is important. That you're not saying, I have the right opinion, and I talk to you, and you should accept my ideas. No, it's an open way of communicating. And in that, you have to analyze and compare different perspectives. Different perspectives is so important, I think. And it's important in biological learning that you analyze social, cultural, and political power relations involved in that. So that's biological learning. It's very much influenced by the ideas of Paulo Freire, Brazilian pedagogue, the 9 mark of pedagogy. And the third one I distinguish is democratic learning. Reflective learning is more about yourself. Biological learning is more in interaction with others. And democratic learning, let's say, that's coming together. It's concern for others, for diversity. It's openness to jointly building walls, but also to stand for your own autonomy. Because democracy is a combination of personal freedom and joint responsibility. It means involvement in enlarging humanity, social justice, democratic sense. And democracy is, as John Julian was saying already, a process, a way of life. So democratic learning, I added that to dialogical learning, because dialogical learning is not enough when focusing on making laws, making consensus, coming together. And therefore, I added a certain kind of learning, democratic learning. I hope these distinctions are helpful in thinking about education activities. Then about teaching values. Already in the questions in the raised in the first part, talk a lot about the teacher's role. And moral values are incorporated really in the curriculum. All different subjects, in all different parts, in all different aspects. It also means that teachers should develop their pedagogical goals. I think in this course, in this program, you are challenged to develop your ideas on what do you find important in teaching. And that's what I mean with developing your pedagogical goals. I use the concept of value stimulation because I don't think we can speak anymore about value transfer, because the notion of transfer is too mechanical. It means that that the teacher transfer the moral values into the head and the mind and the body and attitude of the students. But students also always make their own interpretation. They give their own meaning to it. So therefore, we cannot speak about transfer. And it doesn't mean that the teacher is useful. The teacher doesn't influence the moral development of students. The teacher do that by showing the values he or she finds important. They show it by the examples given by the curriculum. So therefore, I use the word value stimulation. So that shows the active role of the teachers in the process of helping students to develop their own identity, their own moral values. In teaching, controversial issues, in particular in a topic like in a subject like the citizenship education, controversial issues are very central. Students should learn about it. Should learn about different perspectives of controversial issues. And controversial issues are everywhere. In all countries, in the Netherlands, we also have a lot of controversial issues. For example, in traditional schools, teachers don't want to teach about evolution theory in biology. Also, controversial issues about migration, about more confidence ideas. So they really are controversial issues. And you can say that's at the heart of citizenship education, to speak about controversial issues. But I think it's important for teachers to work as much with different perspectives as possible. Not only when the topics are controversial, but all daily life activities, different perspectives. For example, what kind of music do you like? Why you like that? And we can talk about that. Also, what kind of nasi goreng you like? Or what kind of satay?
Yeah.
So, I really like satay. So you can discuss about that. I know about that. Okay? And then you show already that people can have different ideas, different perspectives, and that you can value this diversity. Good to do that in a normal place. When people, the students learn to think from a different perspective, and to appreciate different perspective. But maybe that helps when issues become really controversial. Like we also have sometimes with different topics. And as teacher, we really should be aware of processes of inclusion and exclusion. I know from Dr. Sorry, inclusive education is a real issue in the
Indonesia.
policy. And teachers in their practice are really working on that, on inclusion and exclusion. So we should be aware of that. As I said already, as part of the school approach, the school culture is very important. That's the place where students experience values, where they have interpersonal relationships, hopefully positive, but also in many countries, also in Indonesia, bullying is real an issue.
Yeah.
Also in the Netherlands, it's real an issue. So first thing, so school can pay attention to interpersonal relationships because that constitutes citizenship. The organization of the school is important, and we hope schools can make a more democratic school culture. And part of school culture is diversity. In the Netherlands, it's a real problem that we have a lot of social and cultural segregation. And partly because of the big school choice. The people choose schools that are close to their own ideas. So that means, and that is also elite schools and schools for different cultural groups, for different religious groups. And I say from the viewpoint of citizenship education, it's very important if there is diversity in schools. Therefore, I'm also really strongly in favor of public schools, because public schools are open to all different people. There are quite a lot of religious schools in the Netherlands that also accept people from different cultures, but still it's dominated by one culture. So it's very important that public schools are really heterogeneous. And we should always be aware of that the teacher is a moral example. When the students see you as a human person and see how you express certain values, so that's very important. And I think also, as a moral example, it's good to have diversity within the teacher group. That you have teachers, that you have both female and male teachers, that you have teachers from different religions, from different cultures, also teachers from different sexual orientation. So I think it's very important to have diversity in the teaching group. So we should celebrate in education as a diversity, but also emphasizing what human beings have in common, and we have a lot in common. So that was part 2 about learning values. Now I come more to the area of pedagogical goals and how this is related to citizenship education. In the Netherlands, we did a lot of research on different goals of students, teachers, but also parents. And we always find three groups of goals. And the first is more focusing on adaptation, on discipline, on behavioral well, additional ideas, additional value. It has emphasized a lot in the traditional character education. For example, written by Thomas Nicola, also written by the French sociologist Wiel, and he speaks about personalization. The adaptation is very important pedagogical goal. Particularly in practice, third will be found is autonomy development. So this one important educational goal is helping students to become independent learners, independent human beings, that have an autonomy, that can take responsibility, that can express their own ideas, their own moral values. So the autonomy development is a very strong group of pedagogical goals. You can find in the work of Lawrence Coulter on moral development, but also in sociological theory and the beginnings of agency. So autonomy development is a strong pedagogical goal. And the third group of goals is social orientation. And that can differ a lot. For example, the care approach, exemplified by non-models in particular, is that they could care for other people. I think that's very important. As a way of empathy, but it can also be more political, expressed by, for example, Paulo Freire and Henry Giroux. Then it's more about empowerment, about changing political relationships, power relations, with empowering people. So the social organization can differ a lot, or more psychological and caring, the more political. But we find these three groups often in our research. And we could link that in a statistical way to different types of citizenship. And the first one we call an adapted citizenship. And that emphasizes discipline and social orientation, in particular in their own community. The second one is an individualized citizenship, with a strong focus on autonomy, but with a weak social orientation. And the third one, the critical democratic citizenship, and that combines a focus on autonomy and on social concern. So these three types of citizenship, we have found in a lot of research projects, and also they were very helpful in speaking about citizenship education. It shows that you cannot speak in an abstract way about good citizenship. Good citizenship can have different orientations. It can be more adaptive. It can be more individualized, so you take care of your own concern, and it can be more oriented to credit, that you care more about the public good and democratic process. So citizenship can have different orientations. We also could relate that to different educational practices. In an adapted type of citizenship education, there's a strong focus on fixed values, on transmission of values. We're focusing on law and teacher-directed education. In the individualized citizenship education, there's a strong focus on autonomy, and values are a personal choice. No transmission of values. more technical. A lot of focus on independent learning, individualized education. And the critical democratic citizenship education that combines autonomy and the social concern. There's a lot of joint deliberation of that. And cooperative and inquiry reality. So of course these are ideal type of descriptions. And in practice, real teaching is mostly a combination. But these distinctions I think can be helpful in thinking about education and why we choose a certain approach. What we find in our research in the Netherlands, that we have very good survey among Dutch teachers, that many teachers in the Netherlands, in our survey, about 50% said we find critical democratic important. About 30% is adaptive, and 20% is individualized. But when we ask them about their practice, they say we cannot do as much on critical democratic citizenship education as we want. We pay a lot of attention to adaptation, adaptive citizenship. Be on time, work hard, listen to the teachers. All the aspects are very central in education. Follow the laws, listen, be silent. So that's adaptive citizenship that's more in practice than what teachers want to do. There's a good example of the difference of the level of curriculum I want to say in the beginning between interpretive curriculum and operationalized curriculum. We also, individualized educational practice is also very embedded in the process of selection and assessment in competition between students. I think it's very strong embedded in the Henry curriculum. Also could find differences between teachers of general education and teachers in vocational education. The amount of support for critical democratic education was about the same. But teachers of vocational education emphasize more adaptive and in general education, more individualized education. And it partly has to do with the pedagogical views, but also because often teaching in vocational education is more difficult. It's more difficult to get the disciplinary behavior. Any questions about this or remarks on this part, citizenship?
Ada pertanyaan tentang ini, tentang types of citizenship. Tadi kan dijelasin kalau ada beberapa tipe keluarga negara adaptive citizenship, yang kedua individualis, dan demokrasi. Ada pertanyaan tentang ini, bagaimana tanggapannya kalau di Indonesia tuh kayak gimana? Ada tanggapannya nggak? Indonesia masuk yang individual atau adaptive?
Atau pertanyaan slide sebelumnya juga boleh.
Atau slide iya Pak.
Sebelumnya juga.
Oh sebelumnya.
Ya ini. Sebelumnya juga boleh. Nah itu.
Ini atau social cultures kita gimana? Social cultures, public school, for example, Prince value.
Oke. Prince. Prince again? Oh.
And you want to
Oh,
itu Irvin. Oke.
Irvin. Prince.
Berdiri terus tenang ya. Biar kelihatan semua kamera.
Mike, this.
Okay. I will introduce myself. It's the thing. I'm from Brazil, Australia, from Pancasila and Pancasila and Civil State University of Jakarta. I'm grateful for the session. I hope there will be more public lecture so we can share each other about yeah. I want to share my experience before I continue my school degree. I was a teacher in junior high school in Jakarta, and I found that in our civic education school is fulfilled by Dr. So there is no space to make students become a student. But nowadays, I saw that our students are more criticized, not because of civility, but because of education that is ruined by other our students really is more careful. Our students they they criticize the education system. But it's so like I want to ask, I guess, is the civic election is influenced by religion or identity? If you study in the Netherlands, they
Excuse me, Prof, they have a discussion or anything? Dari anak S1 ya. Silakan adik.
Dibuka ininya biar kelihatan.
Oke, thank you, Pak.
Jangan ditepuk-tepuk.
Okay, thank you for coming, Prof. My name is Alisa Usamadia. Saya izin bertanya untuk yang saya sebelumnya tadi kan di saya sebelumnya itu dijelaskan bahwa pendidikan kewarganegaraan itu diintegrasikan di semua mata pelajaran. Begitupun di Indonesia juga diintegrasikan di semua mata pelajaran ya, Prof. Lalu bagaimanakah untuk di Belanda sendiri kalau di ekstrakurikulernya apakah juga pendidikan kewarganegaraan dalam ekstrakurikulernya, Prof? Thank you. Oh, itu ada di belakang. Yeah, principles, yeah, you have to change the people. Okay.
Nanti beres terakhir.
Okay, let me introduce myself first. My name is Wiel and I'm from undergraduate student. My question is about, for me, I thought that citizenship education is fundamental education, right? It's all about ideology, social, culture, and historical, and value, moral, and many more. But why citizenship education can be so difficult to be implemented in the citizen itself, like I get the point. Why it's so difficult to teach and to learn about the citizenship education itself is. Thank you. So it's a great question. Thank you so much for the question. It's really beautiful.
The last question first. boleh.
Okay, last question. Ya, please. Pertanyaannya. Sepertinya Prince sangat bersemangat. Ini sudah energi.
Berdiri, Mas.
Berdiri.
Oke, thank you. Nah, sebelumnya saya ucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada Pak Kauseri sudah mendatangkan Profesor luar negeri sangat menyenangkan Pak.
He's very happy with your coming here.
Okay, this is my last question. Okay. We all know Indonesia is very religious country, and Netherlands maybe couple months ago is not religious country. And after COVID-19, the issue of LGBT is support in our country. I think many people become LGBT in our country. I know several of my friends become LGBT. Several friends of Bali juga LGBT.
Why
So, I want to know how Netherlands become open to LGBT and become Malaysia.
about the moral citizenship? Do you answer that? Like,
The question is why? How?
what?
Netherlands open to LGBT.
Okay.
And then
LGBT.
I want to know your analysis in our country. Do you think is it possible to involve LGBT become subject in citizen education in Indonesia?
Who say that?
Is it possible LGBT become subject in citizen in Indonesia?
Oh,
I really want to know your opinion, Prof. Thank you so much.
he proposed about LGBT content.
All questions are interesting, and the way they are linked together. It's about
Let me translate the
the second
this beautiful lady.
Yeah.
To say was civics education should be integrated in school. So what about this? What about together like it should be integrated our school or just the school? Moral and civic citizenship.
And how become
It should be
curricular.
integrated or no? Yeah.
I will try to put together the 4 questions. And as you can simply understand, I'm really in favor of what I call an all school approach. And that citizenship is a specific subject, it's included in other subjects. That the school culture is very important. That the school takes care of diversity in school. All these aspects are altogether part of citizenship education. And it's very good if the school try to connect it all. And as I said before, that schools now must have a citizenship education program who takes care of the different, of coordinating the different activities. So I think that's very important. And coming back to the first question, also in the Netherlands, first you were saying that in textbooks in Indonesia, there is not enough space for dialogue, discussion, and it's presented as fictional. And in the Netherlands, it's a little bit the same, but I think comparing, I have to run research on that. I think in the Netherlands, textbooks show sometimes more different perspectives, and also have more the task for students to discuss and have dialogue. But one critics about is that sometimes students discuss a lot, talk a lot, but don't learn about it. It's also true that they learn, not only talk, not only discuss. So I hope as teacher you can interpret the curriculum to your own, so that you add activities that make students more active, and which they can develop their ideas, which they can discuss. And then the point of discussing LGBT, it's officially the Dutch schools must pay attention to that. But some schools, more traditional, particularly some traditional religious schools, they don't want to do that. And then the school inspector said, you should pay attention to that. For example, in saying that homosexuality is a disease. People who are homosexuals are ill. And so government really try to stimulate that schools pay attention to that. But it's not that easy to do that. But I think it's very important to speak about diversity. If you speak about give people the chance to develop their own life, their own way of living, then we should pay attention to LGBT but I think that's really a part of citizenship education. And it can be taught in a more open way in discussing about it, but it also can be taught in a very strict way. Say this is the only way that people should behave. So I hope it will be in a more open way.
Yeah, that's all.
Also, yeah. It's really about teaching.
Yeah.
Can I translate first?
Yeah, okay.
Tadi yang dikatakan tadi ini adalah mana tentang PPKN di sana, Sex Education di Belanda. Atau Prof, PPKN itu diajarkan spesifik, tapi juga tidak diajarkan secara spesifik. Jadi dia diajarkan juga di luar sekolah, integrasinya ke dalam pembelajaran lain. Kemudian tentang yang ditanyakan ini, PPKN itu bagaimana sang guru mengimplementasikannya ke dalam pembelajaran agar pembelajarannya lebih dialog dan lebih aktif dalam diskusi seperti itu. Terus dari Prince tadi sepertinya sudah paham ya, tidak usah dijelaskan lagi. Kemudian ya terus ada one last question, just one last. You could answer this one like, is hard to implement the civic skill to the student. Yeah, it's hard to integrate it. People over here. It's hard to integrate it. It's hard to implement it. Understood it. That's the question.
Yeah, yes. I think that's why a little bit. But if you're right, it's not that easy. And also, for example, having a discussion, students will learn it and learn to discuss. And so it's very important to train it and also for example, giving their opinion and the application of it. So you should train them, and therefore it's good if not only the teacher of citizenship education is doing that, but also, for example, the language teacher takes care of argumentation and communication. So, put it into school, thinking about how to implement the different skills. And you also were suggesting that your question that outside school, students learn also about us. And of course, it is. But we have schools to help students to develop knowledge, skills, and attitudes that they cannot do only by themselves or on the outside school. But therefore, schools is a central role in the human development of students. A good point. Thank you.
Terima kasih atas pertanyaannya. Kita teman-teman kita selesaikan slide dulu. Nanti ada pertanyaan dari ulang lagi pertanyaan.
Questions in class.
Yeah.
That's clear.
I appreciate.
Okay,
Next slide.
next part is part of the global citizenship. We also did some research on global citizenship. And like with the national citizenship, I also found three different ways of thinking and speaking
16
about
halaman.
global citizenship.
Okay.
And the first one is a more open global citizenship. And that's a neoliberal market ideology of open. You're open to different cultures, different ideas, but it's very much market oriented. If there's an ideology in it, it's more market oriented. The second one, that's very popular in education, is more about global citizenship. For example, the work of Magda Nussbaum, Appia, and that's about appreciating diversity, enhancing humanity, and taking care of the world. It's a model call for a better world. So that's an idea about a global citizenship from a moral perspective. But this has been criticized by several people, in particular Chantal Mouffe, but also McDonald's, Rebecca Thomas, Andre Lutton, and others like that, that is not political enough, a moral one. So they argue for social political global citizenship. They challenge power relations and ask for social justice. So that's a more political way of looking at global citizenship. So and again, this is helpful. I say we're speaking about global citizenship. So that when people are using such concept, the first thing you should ask, what exactly do you mean about it? You can really have different ideas about global citizenship. And it's also very helpful in thinking about educational activities. Also for this, I made some skills, and a few years ago, I asked your students, how do you say that? The students were here at that time in the program to fill in the questionnaire, how to find out how important we find it to speak different types of global citizenship. And I also did that with my students in Utrecht at University Humanistic Studies, who also followed their courses in moral and citizenship education. And I found one difference between the Indonesian students and the Dutch students. Where do you think was the difference? What's the difference on open global citizenship, on moral global citizenship, or on social political global citizenship? Any idea?
Okay.
Ada yang mau menanggapi? Indonesian student versus Dutch student on different type of global citizenship. Mau ada yang lebih nggak? Kalau kita tuh seperti apa? Pilihan kita lebih ke sosial politikal, moral global, atau open global citizenship. Ada yang menanggapi? Ada yang you can
Siapa yang open?
put your hands up. Ada yang menanggapi? Mana nih yang lebih itu? Yang lebih diterapkan di Indonesia itu seperti apa? Apakah open global citizenship, moral global citizenship, social political global citizenship? Yang mana? Bisa bantu saya menjelaskan? Kalau di Indonesia loh, waktu kalian sekolah kemarin, pendekatan mana yang paling ini, yang paling terasa sekarang ini? Orang. Oh, berarti kita nggak bahas politik gitu. Oh, kita bahas politik. So, yang mana? Ya, ayo. Raise your hand.
Yang moral acung tangan.
Ya, yang mana siapa? Yang cuma kita belajar tentang siapa itu?
Yang
Yang
yang moral orientasi siapa?
Oh, tidak.
Tidak ada.
Kalau sosial politikal. Ya, oke. Yang open global citizenship yang mana? Oh, yang lain abstain. Oke, yang lain soalnya nggak di Indonesia loh ya.
Yang lain belum mikir.
Oke.
Okay, you're a great teacher. So, follow the level. So, in that small research, I found there were no differences between Indonesian students and Dutch students on open global systems. They both appreciate that a lot. We also both appreciate the moral global citizenship. And of the three, this had the highest score. And the students favor the most the moral global citizenship. But the difference I found was on social political global citizenship. Who do you think were more political? The Dutch students or the Indonesian students? Political in the transformative sense, more focusing on social justice. Who do you think, the Dutch or the Indonesian students?
Ditanya lagi kan, belum ada yang dijawab, ayo ditanya lagi. Ayo, silakan Mas Prince kalau mau berikan tanggapan, jika tidak ada yang menanggapi, itu lebih baik kalau orang lain. Mas Prince terus.
Prince is the first. Oh no.
Anyone?
Ya, silakan. Beren aja nggak apa-apa.
Di antara kedua pendidikan ini mana kalau Indonesia seperti apa? Oke, ada dua.
Ya, ini.
Oh iya, iya. Silakan. Ini dulu ya. Oh iya.
Nggak apa-apa.
Oke, terima kasih Mbak. Menurut saya sendiri, kalau di Indonesia itu menerapkan tiga-tiganya karena apa? Untuk yang pertama itu kewarganegaraan terbuka ya. Jadi di Indonesia itu pada kebudayaan baru. Yang moral itu juga menerapkan seperti kayak toleransi pada yang berbeda agama gitu. Terus yang setiap negara Indonesia. Jadi menurut saya tiga-tiganya itu sangat menerapkan di Indonesia. Terima kasih. Since setting in the different type of global citizenship in Indonesia are implemented, the three of them. So Indonesia is open global citizenship. Also, we learn about moral education, also the social political, because in school we also learning about political, how it going, how it going. We also learn about social. So we are implemented all of them. Ya, begitu. Hampir banyak di memberikan tanggapan yang lain sedikit. Oh ya, yang lain. Oh ya, benar, boleh. Sebentar ya, baik.
Ya, terima kasih kepada moderator. Kalau misalnya berdua boleh dijelaskan. Jadi kita akan mengenai dijelaskan dan diarahkan lagi. Ini dari ketiga ini menurut saya ketiga hal ini belajar di Indonesia di sekolah. Akan tetapi yang saya rasakan dan saya sadari bahwa ketika di sekolah kita dituntut moral untuk mempelajari moral. Contoh sederhananya sekolah mulai pada contoh aplikasinya ketika jumpa guru memberikan salah penilaiannya masih akan dilakukan, tetapi sekolah juga masih mengatakan tidak tahu apa yang terjadi di pendidikan kita. Pendidikan kita itu belum terbuka untuk hal-hal yang kontradiktif. Apa saya katakan seperti itu? Bahwa di sekolah masih membenarkan ini yang benar. Ya walaupun di kemudian waktu saya di S1 dan S2, kita mulai dibuat untuk berpikir bahwa hal-hal yang sama juga harus dibenarkan. Dan itu yang kurang di pendidikan sekolah menurut saya. Nah, di pendidikan sekolah selalu menemukan ini yang benarnya, ini harus yang benarnya, tapi tidak mengedukasi dari sisi yang salahnya. Ini menurut saya bahwa sosial politikal untuk dipelajari di tahap sekolah pendidikan yang lebih strategis juga, sehingga pendidikan yang terbuka tadi itu di sekolah ini, pendidikan sekolah itu saya akan lagi. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih ya. Nanti kalau interaksi ke dalam bahasa Inggris sepertinya lebih mudah dipahami. Tapi ya, oke. Baiklah, Prof. He say about in moral education in middle school, like in the middle class, we learn about morals better than the others. Like we are always greeting like good morning, miss, good morning, and we all handshake. We in Indonesia we call it salaman. Jadi
Second.
ya shake hand, handshake. Kemudian after that, like in higher education and like in university, we are learn a lot about the social, political, global, and because in school we can allow to learn about contradictive issues. So they are not open-minded and in the middle of school, like in higher school, like university, they are open-minded and they practice school social, political, global. So that's what he said. Is it correct? Benar. Kalau di pendidikan dasar, kamu jadi menerapkan tentang moral, tapi kalau pendidikan itu sosial politik gitu ya.
Oke, siap.
Ini tidak hanya tidak sekolah pendidikan saja, tapi tetap sekolah menengah juga.
Elementary and middle school.
Di belakang.
Silakan boleh. Salah satunya di over di sana kayaknya. You can also ask any question. Mas, kalau mau nanya dalam bahasa Inggris juga boleh ya. Menanggapi deh, bukan bertanya. Menanggapi ya Mas ya, menanggapi dari tiga ini. Jadi tidak ada pertanyaan baru.
Kalau kita lihat konteks perbedaan kita di Indonesia ini, kita tergantung dari kurikulum. Di mana PPKN di Indonesia ini satu poinnya bahwa biasanya PPKN ini sering dijadikan alat kekuasaan. Pada kurikulum pada kira itu lebih ke moral. Nah, kemudian pada tahun 2006 terjadi reformasi. Nah, itu sudah berganti kurikulum
bahwa di sana sudah diperbaiki baik dari standarisasi dan kita kalau dilihat dari beberapa media kita sudah masuk kepada politik dan moral dan lain sebagainya. Artinya dominansi moral pada PMP pada era Pak Harto itu sudah mempunyai paradigma baru ke 2006 semacam itu. Nah, kemudian baru ke 2013, kemudian 2022 itu kita kenal dengan dari pendidikan Pancasila dan keluarga menjadi pendidikan Pancasila. Di mana kalau kita lihat memang sudah membuat global dan lain sebagainya, bahkan itu menjadi salah satu tujuan pada pendidikan Pancasila di kultur merdeka, yaitu mampu berpikir dan sebagainya.
Kemudian masih lagi sebenarnya ya. Apa lagi aku?
Cukup.
Cukup ya. Let me translate the last question. The last. He's saying about separate education in several cases. They are domination in moral and value, but nowadays curriculum is changed. The government changed the curriculum so many times. They add a content standard, process standard in the curriculum. They renew the curriculum. So nowadays we have curriculum data a review from the last curriculum 2006.
Independent.
So it's not the question, but the answer is the renew curriculum is the renew the content about the moral and value about Pancasila and civics, because we have Pancasila, so we add the Pancasila to the curriculum. That's all.
It is a good point, interesting, and I've done two researches on the request of the European Parliament, Parliament of the European Union, and in that we had to study how citizenship education was implemented in the 28 EU member states, and we found very interesting things, and that in particular, in some countries, the curriculum changed all the time with new government. Yeah. And so that's not good. It's good that the politics take care about the curriculum of citizenship education, but it should be on a more higher level and not change all the time. And it's also good if curriculum of citizenship education is broader, has a broader meaning than the current government, due to the current politics. So it's good that there's a link to politics and curriculum, but it shouldn't be changed to quality. And in our studies, we show an interesting example. For example, in Spain, all the time there was a new government changed to do a curriculum. But for example, Finland was more stable. They had a more stable idea about how moral education and citizenship education should be included in the curriculum. And in the Netherlands, but also in Germany and Belgium, they had difficulties in defining the curriculum because there were so many conflicting ideas, and in particular Netherlands, so much influence from private schools. So they had difficulties in making curriculum. So there were very interesting studies you could do.
Let me translate it first, Prof. Dan kalau di negara-negara seperti Spanyol itu setiap kali perubahan presiden ganti kurikulum pendidikan moralnya, kemudian ganti kurikulum, kemudian di Prancis juga kayak itu, di Belanda. Tetapi ketika di Finlandia itu lebih stabil kurikulumnya, walaupun ganti pemimpin dia tetap stabil kurikulumnya tetap diterapkan. Kemudian di Belanda, di Jerman, dan ya di Belanda dan Jerman itu agak sulit untuk mengubah kurikulum karena itu ada private school, terus sekolah yang berbasis agama, jadi agak sedikit sulit untuk 2012. Bagaimana mestinya?
Saya kira
Is that it?
cukup dulu langsung.
Ya, kita lanjut lagi ya teman-teman, ke fokus. Lanjut lagi. Oke.
Next presentation.
Oh, no, this one.
So I still have to say who scored higher, the teaching students or the Dutch students. Social and global share.
Terus siapa nih? Kalau kan yang udah pakai itu lebih bagus di mana? Lebih tinggi mana? Indonesia atau orang Belanda kira-kira kalau pendidikan moral seperti ini?
Indonesia.
Yes, Indonesia.
Kalau tadi mana?
And I say, when I make emphasis on open global, more global, the Dutch students, as strongly as the Indonesian students support those ideas, but they were less focusing on shaping power relations, combating inequality, social justice, but they were simply less political. So, well, very nice to see that. But it also shows that, so maybe people have some idea, so Western students, they are better at global citizenship education. So that depends on how you articulate it and how you operationalize it. If you have more social justice, then students from a country like Indonesia, they are more global citizens. So that was very interesting. So,
Next
Dr.
slide.
Samsuri and I also working on a book in Bahasa.
Bahasa Indonesia.
We include that. Okay, so this is interesting, but you can read it on the slide. But about democracy, we spoke already a lot. Recent developments also. A few words about COVID-19 and citizenship. COVID-19 really has shown the global interdependency. How the world is connected in the good and in the bad sense. It also showed how humans relate to nature. It also had challenged the trust in science and the government. Think about fake news. And in many countries, there were all kinds of responses. Borders, less travel, and less empowerment of people. I think, when speaking about COVID-19 and other crises, that thinking about education, we shouldn't speak so much about crisis, but we should speak about what kind of society we want. For example, a society that's good with nature, it has a good health care, that appreciates human interaction and care, that focus on community building, on empowerment and trust, and on care for the global. Going to education and COVID-19, we have seen during COVID-19 that online learning has improved a lot. Dus Dr. Samsuri showed me what was the learning system. That's very good. This is very interesting. And my son, he also has been working on e-learning, developing e-learning systems for secondary schools. I said it's learning a lot, but it also has showed what are negative elements of e-learning. And that's the social contact. Many students, they said, we get crazy only sitting behind our computer. We want to meet our fellow students. And also for teachers, it was more difficult to get an overview of the learning process of students and on their social development. So the paradox was that COVID-19 made people more aware of the important task of education. So that's a good thing of COVID-19, that it shows how important education is, and not only online. And it challenges us to think about what is called now blended learning. So it's good to use technology, but it's also good how we can use social interaction in the class. And in particular, it shows how important it is in education to work on community work in schools with the local community, but also more global orientation. And of course, technology can help in that too. So I think the part of education is what can you learn from COVID-19? And I think in particular to use different techniques, but also to really work on social element of education. This is about study.
Well, then,
I did for the European Union. Yours can be. No.
25. 25. Oh. This is?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay.
So, in the study we did for the European Union, so these are the most important conclusions. So it's important that schools have a whole school approach. We spoke already about that. It's also important that citizenship education has a strong position at the different levels of the curriculum, also as a subject, but also integrated in other activities. It's important that schools and communities and NGOs are there. It's very important that we found in that research interesting examples, particularly in Italy. At the regional level in Italy, they're really working on together with the communities, also NGOs, on working on citizenship education. It's also important that the countries and schools combine and expand activities. And some central agency is important at the national level of citizenship education or curriculum development. On the level of the school, the coordinator for citizenship education. So some coordination is very important. And it's important that different parts of the world, different parts of Europe are working together.
Next slide.
Slide 28.
20.
Yeah, then we're going to finish.
Finish. Oh,
And
28.
here's some consequences of the different research we have done for professional development of teachers. They have to learn about the societal context of citizenship education. They have to learn about different perspectives. They have to learn to show positive examples. They should be future-oriented, giving hope. It's very important, giving hope to those students. We shouldn't speak the whole day about the economic crisis, the climate crisis, the migrant crisis. We have the Netherlands do think so much about crisis. We do speak more about what should we do and giving people hope is better than only speaking about crisis. So for teachers, it's important to be future-oriented. Teachers also should know and learn about biological-oriented learning, about creating a democratic culture, about how to work more on cooperation and less restriction, how to create a diversity an appreciation of learners and teachers, how to include and develop service learning, community question, and more in general, what the societal and budgetary role of teachers can be.
Last
Last one, the last
Last
one,
one, the
30,
last
one,
one.
one back, 30.
39.
So
Oh, 30.
to sum up, teachers should gather students to learn more reflectively, dialogically, and democratically, and to develop their citizenship, hopefully, a critical democratic sense. And we all, citizens and scholars, should appreciate more the moral work of teachers. Teachers can play a crucial role in making society more democratic, just, inclusive, and sustainable. I think it's a very important task, teaching of citizenship. So, as I said, this is a recent book about Catholic fathers of different parts of Europe, and this open access you can download for free. Www.com. This is my website and my email address and some of my some questions and some remarks. Send me an email. So I really enjoyed this session this morning, and in particular because so many people asked questions, make remarks. So it was very dialogical. Really had a good feeling about it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the nice and interesting talk today.
Ya, boleh. Singkat saja, concise.
Let me conclude. Thank you so much for the lesson. Before I close the seminar, I would like to take conclusion for the speaker. Okay. We have the ideal part 6 level of curriculum, ideal formal, integrated, operational, experience, and effective. It's not easy to say what is the best intensive are. Learning is about social activity, teaching value, the curriculum and moral value, and school for ideology, national school for global movement, global morality, environment, ideology. Kemudian pendidikan kewarganegaraan di Belanda itu tidak hanya diterapkan di satu pelajaran, tapi diimplementasikan ke dalam berbagai macam pelajaran. That's all what we need. I'd like to thank you again for you, sir, for the informative and interesting presentation, and all the participants for the active participant. Terima kasih pertanyaan yang luar biasa. Kita dulu. Moving on behalf of the International State University and from field speakers enjoying the rest of his time in Indonesia, especially in Swiss Arabia. Give the applause again for the speaker. Thank you so much for that mistake that come from me, and I apologize if I made mistake for today. For I'm misunderstanding translation. I'm sorry for that, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, sesi akhir ada yang mau foto-foto atau mau pulang langsung?
Foto ya.
Oh, session, foto session. Oke.
Teman-teman itu dari satu ya, dari teman-teman satu kelas ya. Oh, oke, kelas A itu mana kelas A? Oke, kelas A tuju dulu, silakan kita baris dulu ya. We make a line. Kelas A dia pasca sarjana kelas A, habis itu baru pasca sarjana kelas B. Karena kalau banyak buat. Ayo coba saya
Bentar, saya pindah. Oh, sorry.
Oke, ayo adik-adik ya.
Ayo,
Kami
maju.
kita punya waktu 15 menit, kita foto empat angkatan ya. Oke, silakan HP siapa yang di pegang. Win, HP yang mana jawab? HP yang mana jawab? Ayo teman-teman, merapat dulu. Silakan merapat yang terlihatnya. Mas dulu boleh pindah ke belakang dulu, masuk ke menutupi ya. Oke, boleh pindah ke belakang dulu semuanya. Oke, lihat sini ya, lihat pakai. Bapak mau ikut? Oke, sudah siap ya? Siap, kita tunggu Pak Samsuri. Oke, duduk ya, siap. Look at the camera. 1, 2. Another pose. 1, 2. Another pose. 1. Oke, good job. Silakan kelas B. Nanti di drop aja ya. Nanti di drop kelas B. Mahasiswa semester 3 kelas B yang nggak ada drop. Ya. Silakan, ayo cepat. Ya, ayo segera. Ayo, we just have 5 minutes. Adik-adik, ayo segera diluruskan barisannya. Just make it. Ayo. Prof. Ayo sini ya. Oke, lihat sini kan. Another pose. 1, 2. Another pose. 1, 2. Oke. Silakan yang bawa sini saja. Nah, oke, habis ini pas yang kelas A. Ayo, pas pekerjaan yang atau mobil gabung aja Mbak ya. Ya. Ya, A dan B, ayo silakan digabung. Ayo silakan. Boleh Pak, ayo Pak. Oke. Udah siap ya? Udah siap? Semua sudah? Oke. Another pose. Another pose. Okay, another pose. Last one. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Kalau yang mau foto pribadi juga boleh. Ya. Nanti di airdrop ya fotonya ya.
Oh, nggak boleh. Mas kita. Masih nyala.
Iya boleh kelas A juga, lu foto juga boleh.